High above the blue planet Earth, a strange ship hung silently in space. Inside, alien creatures called the Zorth moved about, their eyes fixed on screens showing the world below. They had traveled far across the stars, looking for new places to explore. Now, they had found Earth. Captain Zex, the leader of the Zorth ship, stood tall and proud. His skin was a pale green, and he had 4 arms and 2 big eyes that could see in the dark. He looked at the main screen, watching the blue and green planet spin slowly. "What do we know about this world?" Zex asked his science officer, Vila. Vila, shorter than Zex, but with a bigger head full of brains, tapped on her computer. "It's mostly water, Captain. There are big land masses too. We can see lights on the dark side, so there must be creatures living there." Zex nodded, his antenna twitching with interest. "Any signs of advanced technology?" Vela shook her head. "Not really, Captain. We see some flying machines in the air, but they're very slow. There are no space stations, no ships leaving the planet. It looks primitive." This made Zex smile. In all their travels, the Zorth had never found a world with smart life that wasn't also very advanced. A planet with creatures smart enough to make cities, but not smart enough for space travel. This was new and exciting. "Keep watching," Zex ordered. "I want to know everything about these. What should we call them?" "The creatures call themselves humans," Captain Vela said. "Humans," Zex repeated, testing the word. "Yes, watch these humans closely." For many days, the Zorth ship stayed hidden, using its advanced technology to look at Earth without being seen. They watched cities, oceans, and wild places. They listened to radio and TV signals. They saw cars on roads, planes in the sky, and ships on the seas. But the more they watched, the more confused they became. "Captain," Vela said one day, her voice puzzled, "these humans are strange. Look at this." On the screen, they saw humans doing all sorts of things. Some were building tall buildings. Others were diving deep in the ocean. They saw humans running faster than any Zorth could, lifting heavy weights, and even jumping out of flying machines for fun. How can they do all this without advanced technology? Zex wondered out loud. Vela shrugged her 4 shoulders. "I don't know, Captain. They seem to use simple machines in very clever ways. And their bodies, they're much stronger than they look." Zex frowned. This was not what he expected. Usually, creatures either had strong bodies or smart brains, not both. These humans seemed to have a bit of everything. "What about their weapons?" Zex asked. He was starting to worry. If the Zorth wanted to take over this world, would it be easy? Vela showed him more images. Humans had guns that shot small metal bits very fast. They had big machines called tanks that looked tough. They even had things called bombs that could destroy whole cities. "They fight a lot, Captain," Vela said. "With each other, I mean. They're divided into many groups called countries, and these countries often argue and sometimes fight." Zex thought about this. A world divided should be easy to conquer, but something didn't feel right. These humans were full of surprises. "I think," Zex said slowly, "that we should be careful. These humans may not have spaceships, but they are not simple creatures. We need to learn more before we do anything." Vela nodded, relieved. She had been worried too. "What should we do, Captain?" Zex looked at the image of Earth one more time. It was beautiful, blue and green, and wrapped in white clouds. The humans living there were strange and interesting. For the first time in his life, Zex felt unsure. "We'll watch a bit longer," he decided. "And then we'll try to talk to them. But we must be very, very careful. I have a feeling these humans could be more dangerous than they look." As the Zorth ship continued to orbit Earth, hidden from human eyes, Zex couldn't shake the feeling that everything he thought he knew about finding new worlds was about to change. The humans, in all their strange and wonderful ways, had already surprised him. He wondered what other surprises they might have in store. As days turned into weeks, the Zorth continued to watch Earth from their hidden ship. Captain Zex spent most of his time in the control room, his eyes glued to the screens showing human activity. The more he saw, the more confused he became. Vela, he called to his science officer one day, "Come look at this." Vela hurried over, her 4 arms carrying various data pads. "What is it, Captain?" Zex pointed to a screen showing a busy human city. "See how they move. So quick, so unpredictable. And look there. They're building something new, but it's not like anything we've seen before." Vela nodded, her large head bobbing. "Yes, Captain. The humans are very creative. They're always making new things." Zex frowned, his green skin wrinkling. "But how? They don't have advanced computers like us. They don't have robot workers. They do everything by hand." "That's what makes them interesting," Vela said. "They use their minds and their bodies together in ways we've never seen." Just then, another Zorth rushed into the room. It was Kraz, the ship's military expert. His usual calm face looked worried. "Captain," Kraz shouted, "we've detected something strange." Zex turned quickly. "What is it, Kraz?" Kraz tapped on a screen, bringing up a new image. It showed a large metal object flying through Earth's sky, leaving a trail of fire behind it. "The humans," Kraz said, his voice shaking a little. "They're sending things into space." Zex and Vela looked at each other in surprise. This was new. Until now, they had thought humans couldn't reach space at all. "Is it a weapon?" Zex asked, suddenly worried. Kraz shook his head. "We don't think so. It looks like a vehicle of some kind. Very simple, very crude, but it works." Vela's eyes widened. "Captain, if the humans can reach space, even in a small way." "I know," Zex said, cutting her off. He understood what this meant. The humans were advancing, and fast. If the Zorth wanted to take over Earth, they would have to do it soon. Zex stood up straight, making a decision. "Call the War Council," he ordered. "We need to plan our next move." Soon, the top Zorth leaders were gathered in a big room. Zex told them everything they had learned about humans. Some were scared, some were excited, but all agreed it was time to act. "We should attack now," said one Zorth, banging his fist on the table, "before they get stronger." "No," said another. "We should try to talk to them first. Maybe they'll join us willingly." Zex listened to everyone, thinking hard. Finally, he spoke. "We will prepare for invasion," he said, "but we'll do it carefully. We'll gather a small fleet, just enough to show our strength, but not so much that we look like we want a big war." The other Zorth nodded, agreeing with the plan. But one voice spoke up, sounding worried. It was Vela. "Captain," she said softly, "are we sure about this? The humans have surprised us many times already. What if we're making a mistake?" For a moment, Zex felt unsure. Vela was smart, and her worries made sense, but he pushed the feeling away. After all, the Zorth were far more advanced than humans. What could go wrong? "We'll be fine, Vela," Zex said, trying to sound confident. "The humans may be clever, but they're still primitive compared to us. We have nothing to fear." Vela didn't look convinced, but she didn't argue. The meeting ended, and the Zorth began to prepare for their big move. Over the next few days, more Zorth ships arrived near Earth. They hid behind the moon, getting ready. Zex watched as his small but powerful fleet came together. Soon, they would reveal themselves to the humans. Soon, they would take control of this strange, interesting world. But as Zex looked at the blue planet on his screen, he couldn't shake a tiny feeling of doubt. The humans had surprised them before. Would they do it again? Only time would tell. As the Zorth fleet prepared for their big moment, the people of Earth went about their lives, unaware of the alien eyes watching them or the dramatic events about to unfold. The day had finally come. Captain Zex stood on the bridge of his ship, looking at the screens showing his small but powerful fleet. 5 Zorth ships, each as big as a human city, hung in space behind Earth's moon. They were ready to make their move. "All ships report ready, Captain," said Kraz, the military expert. Zex nodded, feeling both excited and nervous. "Good. It's time to show ourselves to the humans." With a few quick orders, the Zorth fleet began to move. They came out from behind the moon, their huge ships glowing softly in the darkness of space. Slowly, they moved towards Earth. On the blue planet below, it was a normal day. People went to work, children played in parks, and life went on as usual. But that was about to change. In a big room full of computers and screens, a young woman named Sarah was watching the sky. She worked for a space agency, looking for asteroids or other objects that might hit Earth. Suddenly, she saw something strange on her screen. Sir," Sarah called to her boss. "You might want to see this." Her boss, an older man named Dr. Johnson, came over. He looked at the screen and his eyes went wide. What in the world? On the screen, they could see 5 huge objects moving towards Earth. They were too big to be asteroids, too smooth to be natural, and they were moving in a way that nothing in space should move. "Call the president," Dr. Johnson said, his voice shaking. "Now." Within minutes, the news began to spread. All over the world, people looked up at the sky and saw the impossible, huge alien ships coming closer and closer to Earth. In New York City, people stopped in the streets, pointing and shouting. In Tokyo, workers in tall buildings pressed against windows, staring at the sky. In a small village in Africa, children ran to their parents, scared of the strange lights in the sky. World leaders rushed to their offices, trying to figure out what to do. Military commanders ordered their forces to be ready, not knowing if the aliens came in peace or war. TV and radio stations interrupted their normal shows to report the amazing news. Earth was being visited by aliens. Back on the Zorth ships, Captain Zex watched all of this with great interest. He saw the humans running around, heard their excited and scared voices on the radio. It was all going according to plan. "They seemed surprised to see us," Vela said, watching the screens showing Earth. Zex nodded. "Good. Surprised people are easier to control." But then something happened that Zex didn't expect. On one screen, he saw a human aircraft rising from Earth, flying straight towards the Zorth fleet. "What's that?" Zex asked, pointing at the screen. Kraz looked closely. "It seems to be, yes, it's some kind of flying machine. Very primitive, but it's coming right for us." Zex frowned. This wasn't part of the plan. The humans were supposed to be too scared to do anything. "Should we shoot it down?" he asked. Vela shook her head quickly. "No, Captain. That might make the humans angry. Let's wait and see what they do." As they watched, the human aircraft came closer. It was small compared to the Zorth ships, like a toy next to a mountain. But it flew with purpose, not showing any fear. Suddenly, a voice came through the Zorth speakers. It was scratchy and hard to understand, but the words were clear. "This is Captain Maria Rodriguez of the United Earth Space Force. Unknown vessels, please identify yourselves and state your intentions." Zex, Vela, and Kraz looked at each other in shock. The humans had a space force, and they weren't afraid to confront the Zorth ships. For a moment, nobody knew what to do. This was not how it was supposed to go. The humans were acting much braver and more organized than the Zorth had expected. Finally, Zex made a decision. "Open a channel," he said. "It's time we talk to these humans face to face." As Zex prepared to speak to the humans for the first time, he couldn't help but wonder, had the Zorth made a big mistake? Were the humans more powerful than they thought? The next few minutes would change everything, for both the Zorth and humanity. Captain Zex took a deep breath. This was not how he had planned things to go. He looked at Vela and Kraz, who nodded encouragingly. Then he pressed a button to speak to the human ship. "This is Captain Zex of the Zorth fleet," he said, trying to sound strong and calm. "We come from far away to meet you." There was a moment of silence. Then Captain Rodriguez's voice came back. "Welcome to Earth, Captain Zex. What brings you to our planet?" Zex hesitated. He had planned to demand that humans give up control of their world. But now, facing this brave human captain, he wasn't sure what to say. We have come to learn about your world," Zex said finally. It wasn't exactly a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either. Meanwhile, on Earth, things were getting busy. World leaders were meeting in an emergency video call. Military commanders were moving their forces, getting ready for anything. And regular people everywhere were glued to their TVs, phones, and computers, watching the amazing event unfold. In Washington, D.C., the President of the United States sat in a room full of advisors. They listened to the talk between Captain Rodriguez and the alien leader. "What do you think they really want?" the President asked her top scientist. The scientist shook his head. "It's hard to say, but one thing's for sure, they're very advanced. Those ships are like nothing we've ever seen." The President nodded, looking worried. She picked up a phone and said, "Get me Captain Rodriguez. I want to talk to these aliens myself." Back in space, Zex was starting to feel uncomfortable. The humans weren't acting scared or submissive like he had expected. Instead, they were asking questions, making demands, and acting like equals. "We would like to send a team to your ship," Captain Rodriguez was saying, "to talk face to face." Zex looked at Vela in panic. This wasn't part of the plan at all. But before he could answer, another voice came through the speakers. "This is the President of the United States," the new voice said. "I'm speaking for the people of Earth. We welcome peaceful visitors, but we will defend ourselves if we must. What are your true intentions?" Zex felt his hearts beating fast. Zorth have 3 hearts. He realized that the humans were much smarter and braver than he had thought. They weren't going to be easy to conquer at all. "We," Zex stammered, not sure what to say. Vela stepped forward. "Captain," she said quietly, "I think we need to tell them the truth." Zex looked at her, then at the screens showing Earth and the human ships that were now gathering around the Zorth fleet. He made a decision. "People of Earth," Zex said, his voice shaking a little, "I must confess something. We came here thinking you were primitive and easy to conquer. We were very wrong." There was a long silence. On Earth, people held their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Finally, the President spoke again. "We appreciate your honesty, Captain Zex, but you must understand that we cannot allow any threat to our world." Zex nodded, even though the humans couldn't see him. "I understand. We have made a grave mistake. We underestimated you greatly." As Zex spoke, he could see on the screens that more human ships were coming up from Earth. They were smaller than the Zorth ships, but there were many of them. And Zex realized that the humans were ready to fight if they had to. "What do we do now?" Kraz asked, looking nervous. Zex thought hard. The Zorth had come to conquer, but that was clearly not going to work. The humans were too strong, too united, and too determined. He had to find a new way forward. "People of Earth," Zex said finally, "we came as conquerors, but we would like to stay as friends. We have much to learn from you. Can we start over?" As Zex waited for the humans' answer, he realized that everything had changed. The Zorth had come to teach the humans a lesson, but instead, the humans had taught them one. And this was just the beginning. The world held its breath as they waited for the response to Captain Zex's offer of friendship. In homes, offices, and public squares across the globe, people watched their screens, wondering what would happen next. After what felt like a very long time, the President's voice came through again. "Captain Zex, we appreciate your honesty. We're willing to start over, but we need to be careful. We suggest a meeting on neutral ground." Zex felt relief wash over him. The humans were giving them a chance. "We agree," he said quickly. Where shall we meet? The humans suggested a place called the International Space Station. It was a small home that humans had built in space. It wasn't as advanced as Zorth technology, but Zex was impressed that the humans had built anything in space at all. Soon, a small team from each side was getting ready to meet. Zex chose Vela and Kraz to go with him. The humans sent Captain Rodriguez, a scientist, and a diplomat. As the two groups came together on the space station, both sides were nervous. The Zorth had never seen humans up close before. The humans had never seen aliens at all. When they first saw each other, there was a moment of shock. The Zorth, with their green skin and 4 arms, looked very strange to the humans. And the humans, with their 2 arms and many different skin colors, looked just as odd to the Zorth. But then something amazing happened. Captain Rodriguez stepped forward and held out her hand. "Welcome to the International Space Station," she said with a smile. Zex looked at her hand, not sure what to do. Vela whispered to him, "I think it's a greeting. You're supposed to touch her hand with yours." Carefully, Zex reached out one of his 4 hands and gently touched Rodriguez's, and just like that, the ice was broken. Over the next few hours, the two groups talked and learned about each other. The Zorth were amazed by human stories. They heard about how humans had fought big wars, but then made peace. They learned about human art, music, and inventions. "You mean you went to your moon using computers less powerful than the ones in our shoes?" Kraz asked, his eyes wide with wonder. The human scientist nodded, grinning. "We did. We're pretty good at doing a lot with a little." As they talked, Zex began to understand why the Zorth had been so wrong about humans. Humans weren't simple at all. They were complex, creative, and incredibly determined. "Tell me," Zex asked the human diplomat, "how did you build all this when your planet has so many different countries and languages?" The diplomat smiled. "It's not always easy," she said. "We argue a lot, but when we need to, we can work together. And when we do, there's almost nothing we can't do." Vela was fascinated by human emotions. "You feel things so strongly," she said. "You laugh, you cry. It's beautiful." Captain Rodriguez nodded. "Our emotions can cause problems sometimes," she admitted. "But they also drive us to do amazing things. To explore, to create, to love." As the meeting went on, both sides started to relax. They shared food, though the Zorth politely declined to try the human pizza, told jokes, even if not all of them translated well, and even started to become friends. By the time they were ready to leave the space station, everything had changed. Zex no longer saw humans as simple creatures to be conquered. Now he saw them as amazing beings with much to teach the Zorth. "We came here thinking we were superior," Zex said as they prepared to leave. "We were wrong. We have so much to learn from you." Captain Rodriguez smiled. "And we have much to learn from you too," she said. "This could be the start of something wonderful for both our peoples." As Zex returned to his ship, he felt excited about the future. The Zorth had come to Earth looking for an easy conquest. Instead, they had found new friends, new ideas, and a whole new way of seeing the universe. And this, Zex realized, was only the beginning of a great adventure. As the days passed after the first meeting, both humans and Zorth worked hard to build trust. But not everyone was happy about the new friendship. On Earth, some people were scared of the aliens. They didn't trust the Zorth and worried about what might happen. In secret meetings, a group of world leaders talked about what to do if the Zorth turned out to be lying. "We need to be ready," said one general. "Just in case." The president nodded. "Agreed. But let's hope we never need to use any weapons." Meanwhile, on the Zorth ships, some aliens were unhappy too. They had come to conquer, not to make friends. A group of angry Zorth went to talk to Captain Zex. "We should take what we want." One of them said, "We are stronger than the humans." But Zex shook his head. "No," he said firmly. "We were wrong about the humans. They are not weak. and they have much to teach us. As both sides dealt with these problems, they also started to work together. Human scientists came to the Zorth ships to learn about their technology. Zorth experts went down to Earth to study human culture and history. One day, as Vela was visiting the human school, something amazing happened. A young girl raised her hand and asked, "Can you teach us how to build spaceships like yours?" Vela was surprised. She looked at the teacher, who smiled and nodded. "Of course," Vela said, "but maybe you can teach us something too. How do you humans come up with so many new ideas?" The girl grinned. "That's easy. We use our imagination." This simple answer made Vela think. The Zorth were very smart, but they didn't use their imagination much. Maybe this was why humans were so creative. Back in space, Zex was learning too. He was talking to Captain Rodriguez about human history when alarms started blaring on both their ships. "What's happening?" Zex asked, worried. Rodriguez looked at her computer screen, her face serious. "It's an asteroid," she said. "A big one. And it's heading straight for Earth." Zex felt scared. He knew that a big asteroid could hurt the Earth badly. "What can we do?" he asked. Rodriguez thought for a moment. "Our weapons aren't strong enough to break it up," she said. "But maybe if we work together." Zex nodded quickly. "Yes, we'll help. What's the plan?" Over the next few hours, humans and Zorth worked together like never before. Human scientists used their creativity to come up with ideas. Zorth engineers used their advanced technology to make those ideas work. They decided to build a giant net, made of both human and Zorth materials. They would catch the asteroid in the net, and then use Zorth ships to push it away from Earth. It was a crazy plan. Many people, both human and Zorth, said it would never work, but they had to try. As the asteroid got closer, everyone watched and waited. The giant net floated in space, held between human and Zorth ships. Captain Rodriguez and Captain Zex stood side by side, watching the screens. "Here it comes," Rodriguez said softly. The asteroid hit the net with a huge flash of light. For a moment, everyone held their breath. Would the net hold? Then a cheer went up from both humans and Zorth. The net had worked. The asteroid was caught. Now came the hard part. Slowly, carefully, the Zorth ships began to push, moving the asteroid away from Earth. It was hard work, but after many hours, they did it. The asteroid was sent flying off into space, never to threaten Earth again. As the danger passed, humans and Zorth celebrated together. They had faced a big problem and solved it by working as one team. Zex looked at Rodriguez, his eyes shining with new respect. "I think," he said, "that this is the start of a wonderful friendship between our peoples." Rodriguez smiled back. "I think you're right," she said. "Together, there's nothing we can't do." As news of their success spread across Earth and the Zorth fleet, both species realized something important. They were stronger together than they ever could be apart. The future suddenly looked bright and full of possibilities. 1 year had passed since the Zorth first arrived on Earth. So much had changed in that time. What started as a planned invasion had turned into a wonderful partnership between two very different species. Today was a special day. Leaders from Earth and the Zorth were meeting to sign a big agreement. They called it the Galactic Friendship Treaty. The meeting was held in a huge room at the United Nations in New York. Humans from all over the world were there. The Zorth had sent their most important leaders too. Everyone was excited and a little nervous. Captain Zex stood next to the President of the United States. They both looked out at the crowd of humans and Zorth, all mixed together. "I never thought I'd see this day," Zex said softly. The President smiled. "Neither did we, but I'm glad we're here." As they watched, human children played with young Zorth. The alien kids were teaching the human ones how to use all 4 arms to juggle. The human kids were showing the Zorth how to play hopscotch. Everyone was laughing and having fun. Vela came up to Zex, her eyes shining. "Captain," she said, "I've just heard amazing news. The humans have used some of our ideas to make a new spaceship. They say it can go faster than light. Zex was shocked. Already? But how? They combined our technology with their creativity. Vila explained. They thought of things we never imagined. Just then, Captain Rodriguez joined them. She was wearing a new uniform that showed she was now an important leader in Earth's space program. "Are you ready for the big announcement?" she asked with a grin. Zex nodded, feeling both excited and a little scared. They had been planning this for months, but now that the moment was here, it felt very real. The room got quiet as the president stepped up to speak. "People of Earth and friends from Zorth," she began. "Today, we sign a treaty of friendship. But we're also here to announce something even bigger." She looked at Zex, who stepped forward. "Together," he said, his voice strong and clear, "humans and Zorth will explore the galaxy. We will send out ships with crews from both our worlds. We will learn and grow together." The room erupted in cheers. Humans and Zorth hugged each other, crying happy tears. It was a moment no one would ever forget. Later, as the party was winding down, Zex found a quiet corner to think. He remembered how he had felt when they first came to Earth. He had thought humans were simple and weak. He had been so wrong. Vela joined him, carrying a strange Earth drink called soda. She took a sip and made a funny face. "It's so bubbly," she said, laughing. Zex smiled. "Vela," he said, "do you remember when you told me we should be careful about the humans? You were right." Vela nodded. "I was worried," she admitted. "But I never guessed it would turn out like this. The humans have taught us so much." "Yes," Zex agreed. "They've taught us about creativity, about working together even when you disagree. They've taught us how to imagine new things. And we've taught them too," Vila added. "Our technology, our way of looking at the universe. Together, we're better than we ever were apart." As they talked, they saw a group of human and Zorth scientists huddled around a table. They were drawing plans for a new type of space station. Human artists were there too, making the plans look beautiful. "Look at that," Zex said softly. "That's the future, right there." Vela nodded. "A future we'll build together." As the sun set outside, casting a warm glow through the big windows, Zex felt happy and hopeful. The Zorth had come to Earth thinking they knew everything. Instead, they had learned the greatest lesson of all. There was always more to learn, more to discover. And with their new human friends, the journey was just beginning. Zex raised his glass of soda. "To the future," he said. Vila raised her glass too. "To humanity," she added. "And to learning from our mistakes." As they clinked their glasses together, both Zex and Vela knew that the greatest adventures were still to come.